下面呢，我们就要开始下午的主旨发言的分享环节。下午的第一位发言人呢，我要在这里做一点隆重的推荐，因为对很多在第一线从事自然教育的伙伴来说，可能对他会比较陌生，但是对在做环境教育或者说可持续教育相关工作，特别是研究工作的人来说，Wals 教授的名字应该是每一个人都经常听到，而且是常常在我们相关工作中会了解到的。那前年的时候，他在全球最顶尖的期刊上，也就是 Science 上发表了一篇论文，专门去探讨科学教育和我们在做的环境教育之间的连接。这其中的很多困惑，其实是我们在做自然教育的伙伴常常面临的。我们做的事情是不是就是那么的边缘，那么的不重要？包括自然教育和环境教育和可持续教育之间到底有一些什么样的关系，在待会儿 Wals 教授的分享中都会有所涉及，相信大家会非常的期待。那下面就让我们来一起用热情的掌声欢迎联合国教科文组织社会学习与可持续发展主席，全球环境论坛的联合主席Prof. Arjen Wals， 有请。
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, and it's an honor to be speaking here at the China Nature Education Forum, the second one, and it's nice to see the interest increasing. So many people this year, I think more than double from last time. And it's also an honor to be speaking after Richard Louth, who has been quite influential, not just in China, but also in my home country, the Netherlands. And it's wonderful that a meeting like this can be organized by 20 different networked NGOs working together, also working more closely with government, private sector foundations like the Alibaba Foundation and the SVE Foundation. And what I also find very encouraging is that a lot of people here, compared to my own country, the Netherlands, where we have a lot of nature educators, but they tend to be a little bit older nowadays. And here I see a lot of young people in the room, which is encouraging. Let me start with my talk. I will be walking around and I will be using a PowerPoint, although I'm a little bit afraid after Richard's introduction, saying everything that can go wrong with PowerPoint. But I will try anyway. I like pictures. I think most of you in the room know that we live in a very special time. It is the first time in the history of humankind, but long before, in all history, that one single species, Homo sapiens, us humans, have succeeded in influencing major Earth systems in a way that we are now entering the special geological time that some refer to as the Anthropocene, the geological time era where humans are influencing climate, ecosystems, the oceans. And this has never happened before, that one species could do this. This was published in Science magazine just a half a year ago, where it is confirmed that we now are entering a new era that can be characterized by the sixth mass extinction of species. The urgency that we must do something is clear. The climate change that is affecting all of us, those living in poverty and those living in wealth, is getting a lot of attention, fortunately, from our world leaders. Finally, maybe. And in just a few weeks in Paris, there will be a big climate change summit where world leaders will be talking about reducing carbon emissions. We do know that Richard Louv already mentioned that some people are afraid of having their children go outside. There's the fear of strangers. Some people are afraid of having their children go outside because of maybe the air quality being not so good anymore. And this book, Last Child in the Woods, is of course a very powerful book, but we must be careful that it's not the last wood for our child that is available. And I will talk a little bit about not being too negative and pessimistic, but hopeful about the future as well, because I can see that indeed there is the danger of young people today not believing in the future. And that is of course very dangerous. One thing that we must be aware of, that there's a lot of differences in opinion about what should be done. This is just an example of confusion around issues like reducing poverty, fighting biodiversity loss, fighting loss of food security and things like that. These are two women. On the left, a woman promoting the green economy, saying that we should have change in our industry that should become greener, focusing on healthier products that last longer and that requires new skills and new jobs. And on the right side, a woman against the green economy, because she represents small farmers in southern Africa that cannot participate in the green economy because then they need to be certified to become organic producers, and that's very expensive for them. So their products, even though they produce organically, don't get certified and they get left out of the green economy. So they are worried about the green economy. So two women from different parts of the world, one saying yes, the green economy is good, another one, no, it is dangerous for us. So there's a lot of confusion, also caused by maybe the world of business, emphasizing sustainability, as Richard Louv already mentioned, that the word sustainable has become somewhat meaningless in some parts of the world, because when companies that have at the heart of their interest economic growth and not so much sustaining people and planet, when they also use the word sustainable, people get confused as well. Volkswagen, one company that you probably know, uses this ad, or used this ad a while ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and it talks about sustainable excitement. And we all know that when we talk about sustainability, we don't talk about sustainable excitement in this way. We also know that Volkswagen is the company that used software to cheat on its emission tests, measuring its diesel and CO2 emissions in a way that didn't really measure its real output when driving a Volkswagen diesel. So this is really something that we are facing as well. A lot of confusion about among people in government too, among NGOs, but also among science itself, about what is happening to the earth and what should be done about it. You could say there's more and more agreement, but there's also confusion. And that makes it a difficult topic for education. It is not like teaching about photosynthesis or about Newton's laws about gravity, where there is maybe one correct answer that you can teach. When we talk about sustainability, there are many answers. And they may be different here in China from in the Netherlands or in Kampala, Uganda. And what we may think is sustainable today maybe turns out to be unsustainable tomorrow. So it's a very complex issue. Now in a minute I'll talk about how important nature education is to help people understand sustainability. These pictures show a little bit this confusion. On the left side you see that we have made everything green, green packaging, green nuclear energy, green coal burning plants, green aircraft. But when you look at the big picture, nothing has changed. We have added the word green, and maybe we have made it a little bit more efficient, but we have not really changed the system. And in order to become really sustainable, we will need to think about the system. And on the left side, or on the right side, you see a picture that illustrates this world in which we want and need to buy more things, where we need to consume all the time, where we need to have the latest phone, where we need to have the latest technology all the time, where we make things that do not last very long, because if it lasts very long, it's not good for the economy. So this man on the right side is saying, it is too much, but is it enough? Always needing to have more. We've talked already about the use of cell phones, internet, Wi-Fi. Even in this room there's Wi-Fi, and it's very handy because we can check our mail and we can do things. We can almost not live in a world without Wi-Fi. We need to be connected to the internet. But the more we are connected to the internet, the less we are connected to the world around us. And this is something that Richard will also refer to already. And he referred to E.O. Wilson from Harvard, who talked about biophilia. E.O. Wilson was a wise man, because years ago he said this: today we can find information everywhere, but his wisdom about how to act, how to understand these questions in a meaningful way is often hard to find. Where is the wisdom? And how can we educate to become wiser in living on the planet? It was nice that some of the volunteers translated some of the slides in Chinese. Now I also, maybe I'm standing in front of it, I'll walk around so you can read it. But this is an interesting quote from an article from a newspaper from England, The Guardian. And what they wrote was, we spend lots of money trying to find out if there is life or water on other planets like Mars. And we are very curious, is there intelligent life out there far away? But they were saying, if we look at the way we treat our Earth, we can ask the question, is there intelligent life on Earth? There's so many smart people on the planet with all these smartphones, but if you look at how we treat the Earth, how we live on the planet, how we use our resources, how we take care of other species, it is not very intelligent. So how can we live more intelligently on the Earth, in a better relationship with other species, with ecosystems, within boundaries, not always wanting to expand and increase boundaries? Now, you know, I've been, as a UNESCO chair, I've done some research on the decade of education for sustainable development in many countries. And there are different terms used: nature education, environmental education, education for sustainable development. And in different countries these relate in different ways, and they have different meanings. And I'd like you to see some of these different relationships as they can be found in different parts of the world. The first one is one where nature education is the oldest one, starting already 100 years ago, focusing on ecological mindfulness, understanding nature, relating to nature, understanding the web of life, things like that. And then in maybe the 1960s, about 50 years ago, there was lots of pollution, air pollution, water pollution in many parts of the world, still today, but then it started in many, like in the UK, in Western Europe, in Canada, US. Lots of problems with air quality, problems that we have still today in many parts, including in China, of the world. But that led to environmental studies, environmental engineering, but also environmental education. How can we use less energy? How can we reduce waste? How can we separate waste? How can we use education to change people's behavior? Make it more environmentally friendly. That focused not so much on connecting with nature, but maybe more on changing environmental behavior. And some say nature education is a part of environmental education. And then later we get education for sustainable development. About 1992, we have the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Sustainable development is becoming a bigger concept in international policy. And it's not just looking at nature, it's not just looking at environment and ecology, it's also looking at justice, ethics, north-south relationships, inequality, economics. It's becoming even bigger. So that's the first kind of way of looking at the relationship, nature education, environmental education, and ESD. The second one is another one that really says environmental education in the spirit of the UNESCO UNEP conference in Tbilisi, Georgia, 1977. That already talked about nature, ecology, ethics, environment, economics. And ESD is actually part of environmental education, and so is nature education. Another way you can find these relationships is where EE, environmental education, and ESD, they overlap. They have some things in common, but they're also quite different. And nature education is part of environmental education. It's more on that side than on the ESD side. And then there are those who say, well, it is really more or less the same thing. It's just a different label, a different name. And the final one is saying, well, we have an evolution. First, nature education, then environmental education, then education for sustainable development, and next, we don't know, something else. And it all includes, everything includes the former. So nature education is still a part of all this. I'm not sure exactly how in China the relationship is between ESD, EE, and nature education. You probably know better than I do, and it may be different in different parts of China. But the fact is, we have lots of issues that have to do with health, with biodiversity, development, peace. And all these issues have their own education. Health education, human rights education, development education, climate change education, environmental education, nature education. There are all these educations that have some concern about the well-being of people and planet. And maybe education for sustainable development is like an umbrella for all these educations. So that's another way of looking at this. Now, why is nature education so foundational, so important? And Richard Lou's book, Last Child in the Woods, is very good, I think, in making a strong case for this. And you could say, without an intrinsic, a deeper connection with the place, without having an identity with where you live, you will not care for that place. If you don't have a sense of belonging, then why would you care? And this is of course a problem when young people spend 80-90% of the time when they are awake behind their phone, tablet or computer. So this is so foundational that we must not forget the ecological basis of our existence. And of course there are many big areas, urban areas, where it becomes more and more difficult to make that relationship. There's lots of evidence, and there's also some trends that are not always good trends. If I look at the Netherlands, we have 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago, in 1912, there was already in the city of The Hague that the city decided to have school gardens and city farms for children who could never leave the city. They would bring nature and farming into the city. Educational farms and gardens. They disappeared over time because schools started focusing more on testing, more on rankings, more on what we call in Holland the PISA rankings, where schools need to perform in science, mathematics, reading, writing, and these kinds of programs disappeared. Fortunately, nowadays, schools, governments are beginning to see the benefit of connecting young children with the greener world and connecting them with their food and connecting them with issues around biodiversity, but also energy, water, conservation. In part because when they spend more time outdoors, as Richard has already said earlier, they can concentrate better. They feel healthier. Lots of diseases like obesity go down. So there are lots of benefits of this. Of course, there's a lot of competition from the world of information and communication technology. A lot of these technologies are designed in a very clever way. They too are designed to make you have a sense of awe and a sense of wonder. And they are designed in such a way that they capture your attention all the time. My phone is on the table there, and I cannot go to it now. But I'm thinking a little bit, maybe an important message has come in, and I should check. It's very difficult we have to learn to live with the technology, but we also have to learn to live without the technology. We need both. And it's very difficult for young people, but also for myself, to be a day without my phone. It's very difficult. And why? Because also people who are very smart, sound engineers at Stanford University, they designed the sound that we use, in China you do not have WhatsApp, but we use WhatsApp, and it's a little sound that goes like ding, and when you hear that sound, you want to check, because it's such a nice, positive sound. And sound engineers at Stanford spent 6 months testing on people what sound will go deep into your bones so that you must check your messages. Now you can wonder, is that a good way of using our brain power, the smartest people on the planet, to use them to get us to go to the technology? Can we not use that kind of brain power to get us to go to nature? I can skip this slide because Richard Love has already spoken about all the benefits of reconnecting with nature. And that doesn't have to be, as you all know here, it doesn't have to be in national parks. It can be in every city corner where something will grow that nobody planted. I did some research in Detroit long ago for my own PhD, and I asked one of the African American girls, 13 years old, Lashanta, in a very poor neighborhood in Detroit, do you have any nature in your neighborhood? And she said, well, yes, there's this plant growing in the concrete of the parking lot that nobody planted. It just grew. Nobody planted it, it just grew. And for her, that was nature. And it is. So finding the teachable moments and finding those opportunities, even in urban areas, is, I think, crucial, because most young children today, they do not have the privilege to go to a national park. They live in circumstances that make it very difficult to do that. And we must not leave those children behind. There are many reasons why nature experience is important. One that I think is really crucial is that if we do have a whole generation growing up without any connection to nature, and they have children of their own, the likelihood of them taking their children for a walk into nature, to the outdoors, is very small. They will have forgotten a whole way of parenting that helps connect young people with nature. And this is sometimes called generational amnesia. Crucial will be parental involvement in nature education. And I'll give you an example of that in a minute. This picture speaks for itself, I think. Especially when you look at education. A lot of schools help young people divide the world into subjects, into disciplines, into smaller and smaller units. We get very good at thinking the world into small pieces. And we forget the ability to see connections, to see relationships, to be more holistic in our thinking. And this is where nature education is crucial as well. It allows young people to discover the world on their own terms, holistically, as it unfolds in front of them. It is not dissected into categories, boxes, subjects, disciplines, and things like that. So providing this learning experience is crucial to develop a way of thinking that involves empathy, putting yourself in the minds of others, understanding that ecosystems require cycles and feedback, cause and effects. Those kinds of ways of thinking are crucial if we want to live more sustainably. One of my colleagues at my university, Wageningen University in the Netherlands, which is one of the universities where I work, the other one is in Sweden, Gothenburg University. But Anne Remmerswaal did some research in Holland, and she followed a school, a class of a school. And that class went every Friday afternoon. They went on their bikes, in Holland we bike a lot, to a farm, a local farm. And they worked and played on the farm. And the farm was bordering a natural area. And she followed every season, if it was raining or shining, they went, no matter what weather it was. And she looked at what kinds of things do they develop, what kind of values do they develop when they are in nature. And here are just some that, and they are translated, and I'll show you some pictures that illustrate. She took these pictures while she was doing her research. Having a the sense of belonging, connecting with other species in this way. Of course, the farmer has to be open for this. The farmer has to have a farm that he or she is proud of showing and not ashamed of. The farmer has to feel it's important to connect young people with food and food production, help them understand. And teachers need to find it important. And parents usually guide the children on the way to the farm. They are important. Creating something that Richard also talked about. A place that you create, that you take care of, that you are proud of. But also being by yourself, feeling, reflecting, not being rushed by the technology. Do I click here or do I click there? Do I check this or do I check that? No, just being on your own in the natural world. And even though you could say agriculture is not nature, it is. In Holland we have always a blend of culture and nature. It's a very urbanized country. A lot of land is always being used in one way or another, but still these kinds of experiences are very foundational. Feeling free, the sense of wonder, wandering around, but also the excitement, the thrill of experiencing something that is completely different, that you'll never forget. You will forget that one web page that you visited today, but you will never forget as a child this kind of an experience. It is what Louisa Charla, one of a researcher from the US, calls the significant life experience. Feeling safe with an adult there to guide, but also letting you try things out, discovering your own boundaries, trying something new, testing yourself, having stewardship together. It's friendship. Richard talked about social capital, social cohesion. And I think it's really important that when you do these things collectively, when you co-create together something, you develop friendships and relationships. And developing friendships and relationships, not just with the natural world, but also with the human world, is very important if we want to utilize diversity in society. Social cohesion between people who are not thinking in the same way is crucial if you want to utilize diversity to become more creative in solving sustainability challenges. One thing, I'd like to go back to this idea of a pedagogy of hope, and not teaching and learning and experiencing for fear, just for understanding and awareness. We need to move beyond that. And that means that we need to educate in a way that people, young people, also can make change, can investigate, study, make a diagnosis, doing so connect with the place, experience, using head, heart, hands, but also feel empowered to make change. And that they can see that if I change something, it can have an effect, it can have an impact. I'm not powerless. And this is oftentimes, we are in a spiral of powerlessness, where we think that people are basically greedy, selfish, individualistic, where we don't have a lot of trust, not a lot of faith in government, where we have no belief that we can make a difference, that we think that there's corruption, that it's a big, big, bad world out there. This spiral of powerlessness leaves people outside and hide behind their computers. They won't act. They will only become consumers. And people, and this is really how I feel, people are not consumers. People are humans. And we talk a lot about consumption and consumers, but we really are humans, first and foremost. And education is not to serve the economy. Education is to serve people and planet. And the economy is there to serve people and planet, not the other way around. And in too many countries, I see that it's been the other way around. We educate young people to become workers in a global economy who can use technology, who can switch jobs quickly, because the economy changes quickly. And if we only prepare young people for a world of work and not for a world of meaningful living, then education is doing something wrong. And this is why, again, nature education can show a very good example of learning and living more meaningfully, connected to a place, and not to a world of buying things and consumption. So the spiral of empowerment looks more like this, where there's a lot of trust and goodness. Humans are basically good humans. We care for each other. When there's a problem, we work together. We do not fight. We believe in trust. We believe in interaction between different groups in society. We can make a difference. And this spiral gives energy. It helps people get motivated and do things, not just better, but do better things altogether. And there's a difference between doing things better and doing better things. I'm not sure how that translates in Chinese. I'd like to thank the interpreters already. So it's not easy to translate these things, and I really appreciate trying to translate. Okay. I will go fast. This is an example of a program that we created when I was a PhD student myself at the University of Michigan with my mentor. Unfortunately, he died too young, Bill Stepp, founding father of environmental education, certainly in North America. The Global Rivers Environmental Education Network. This was a watershed, a whole watershed approach to learning about the environment and sustainability and nature, where people would investigate the quality of the river, different schools, upstream, midstream, downstream. They would do that on the same day, and they would exchange data, already using technology to exchange the data and citizen science. And they would also identify the key issues of pollution and interview people who lived on the river a long time to learn about the history of the river. And also designing plans of actions to make change in the river, networking with each other, linking cultural sensitivity. People living in poverty on the river usually lived in areas where the river was of poor water quality, and the people who were wealthier, they lived in areas where the river was of better water quality. Why this inequity? So linking cultural sensitivity and environmental sensitivity. This type of project that I know is being done in China as well are very crucial in not just raising awareness, but also bringing about change and linking people with each other around a common cause. Citizen science, it's another way where people with the technology, I agree with Richard Louv again, the technology cannot be banned, we must use it wisely. And this is one way of using it more wisely. When we use our smartphones to monitor air quality, water quality, our health, or when we design apps to maybe make carpooling easier, then it can be very positive. Citizen science is a way to monitor, to have citizens monitor their own research and collect their own evidence to make change and to influence government. This is an example from the Cornell Ornithology Lab in the United States at Cornell University, Yard Lab it's called, where people monitor local biodiversity, also using smartphones, using the internet, and identifying where they can improve biodiversity to attract more species. Just one simple example of how citizen science can bring people closer to nature and understanding nature, but also appreciating nature more. The ESD, Education for Sustainable Development, you could say brings some 4 critical lenses or ways of looking at your education and learning. And this is also, I think, relevant for nature education. The integrative lens. Try to always see the connection between the ecological, the economical, the social, the cultural, and the ethical. These questions are always there. We just have to see them. Critical. Sometimes we need to be a little bit disruptive. Questioning. Why are we doing things the way we do? Why are we forced to always want to have new things? Why is it that we can't go outdoors easily anymore? What are the powers that lead to this? And what can we do to change the system? Not just the optimization, but the transition towards different, new, alternative values and assumptions. And that may be ancient values and assumptions that were from old days, where people lived in maybe more harmony with the earth than we do today. So it's multiple ways of doing this. Richard talked about the hybrid mind, the hybrid professional, hybrid thinking. This is a way of looking at this conceptually, a learning ecology, where we recognize that we have different filters and lenses through which we see the world. And we have to become aware of how do we see the world. What is the kind of value underneath? And is that a value that we are comfortable with? Or maybe we should challenge, question. Also looking at not just using the technology in a good way, looking at games and simulation in a positive way, but above all also experience. New forms of learning, experiential learning, social learning, problem-based learning, or solution-oriented learning. I think that's a better word, more positive. Not just collecting data when we do research and engage people and citizens in research, but also knowledge, understanding, meaning, and ultimately, to use E.O. Wilson's word, wisdom. I think all the slides will be shared with you, and you can have more time to look at this. But this learning is networked. It's not just formal learning, it's informal learning, non-formal learning. It is peer-to-peer learning. It is intergenerational learning between young people and older people. It is involving different perspectives so that we can become more creative in finding solutions to these kinds of problems and issues. It's bringing about positive change and the spiral of empowerment that I referred to earlier. This is another way of looking at the same thing, but more from an organizational point of view. And you're doing this already here, I know that. Bringing the world of governance together with the private sector, with different foundations, NGOs, connecting it to societal trends, policy themes, and finding a good way to build what we would call a vital coalition that gives energy, that can bring about change and transitions. You have eco-schools in China, I've been told. I think the school of the future, Richard talked about it, may look something like this. It does have solar panels on the roof, but that's certainly not the whole story. It is also about participation, working in groups, learning to make decisions, dealing with conflict. That's important. Having the school grounds green with biodiversity, food production, school gardening, connecting with local farms, connecting with local businesses, having a bike repair shop in the school, working with the local bike store who can teach children skills about how to repair bikes. It is making connections between school and community. It is connecting the outdoor with the indoor, the curriculum to real experiences outside of the school. This way, learning becomes more relevant, more meaningful, more engaging, more motivated, more change-oriented. And it could create a whole school ethos, a school that breathes sustainability, and not one that breathes unsustainability, as often is the case today. The last slides, I will just show you some examples of how in Holland some schools have changed their school environment to make it more, this is all in the city, this is in Rotterdam, to make it more playful, more inviting, more green, more natural, more place-based. These things are happening more and more, and there's a real resurgence, a revival, if you will, of the work that was already in some ways thought out 100 years ago, as I mentioned earlier, in some cities in the Netherlands. Now, I'm not sure if there will be time for questioning, but I think, I hope that I have shown you some of the problematics around teaching for a more sustainable world, the importance, the relationship between environmental education, ESD, and nature education, but also how, by creating these ecologies of learning, we can make education more meaningful, more relevant, more engaging, and more future-oriented, where we are no longer just consumers, but where we become human again through our everyday lives, educational experiences. So thank you for your attention. It's a pleasure having been able to speak with you.
非常感谢沃尔斯教授的非常精彩的演讲。我必须要说，我看到那个 PPT 页的时候，我其实一直很期待今天能够听到这样的一个分享，因为他其实在这个里面回答了我们，我相信是很多人一直在困扰的一个问题，就是自然教育是不是只是去做简单的自然的体验，去重建人和自然的连接？除此之外，我们是不是能够更好的去回应到社会和环境上现在面临的这样的一些问题？如果我们仅仅只是去带孩子去体验和感受自然的话，那么有一天当这些美好的自然都不在的时候，我们能做什么呢？所以我觉得他的很多分享其实给我们非常多的启发。对孩子的这种自然教育，或者说对人的自然教育，不仅仅是为了让他重建和自然的连接，更重要的是让他们去怀有一颗对自然的爱和悲悯的心，然后让更多的人愿意去关注和投入到去创造更好的一个自然环境这样的一个事业中来。所以非常感谢沃尔斯教授的分享。然后，其实沃尔斯教授之前有跟我说，他说他之前和中国的联系基本上是和政府还有学校层面的交流非常多。他这次愿意来也是非常期待能够和民间做自然教育伙伴有一些交流。那么我们也有请美国的李月博士来帮沃尔斯做随行的翻译，所以大家不用，如果有兴趣想跟他做私下的交流的话，欢迎大家在会后的时候找时间来跟他做更进一步的这个交流和分享。